In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products?
My media product uses many conventions of similar media products, such as the posture of the male in the main image of my front cover. His facial expression is aggressive, with his arms folded looking directly at the camera, which is similar to the image found on the cover of XXL with Young Jeezy. I wanted my magazine to follow a lot of the conventions from the source. For example, on the contents page, the layout and content is similar to the institution's version. On the contents page, you can see a grimy wall with graffiti in the background with a character in front, whereas on the source, the image of Wiz Khalifa sitting in what looks like to be a bush or a tree. While analysing the source, I found that the magazine uses backgrounds effectively to convey the content of the article to allow the readers to know what the article is roughly about without reading it. This is so that the readers don't feel as if the whole magazine has to be read just to find the article you're looking for. I have decided to use this style in my magazine, such as the backgrounds on my front cover and double-page spread partially relate to the general stereotype of the hip-hop artist's original whereabouts and the type of life you'd expect them to be living now. How does your media product represent particular social groups? In my media product, I have used Asian people throughout, which challenges the ethnicity of a stereotypical hip-hop artist being African American. However, nowadays the hip-hop scene has all different types of ethnicities, such as Caucasian, for example Eminem, and Asian, for example Jay Shaw. Because of this, I've decided to use Asians as some are now recognized as hip-hop artists. I have represented the artists in my production in a positive light as well as a negative light. On the front cover, the artist is seen to be hard by his facial expression and posture, as well as suggested to be living the thug life by his beanie hat and black clothing. On the other hand, I also wanted to represent the artist in a positive light. I did this by the bright clothing on the double-page spread and by the posture of the artist. On the double-page spread, I have the artist relaxing in a chair looking up towards the sky, or suggestively the title of the article, Hip Hop Hero, making the readers think he is proud of his achievement and status of a hero. The smaller image in the bottom right corner shows the artist wearing sunglasses, which connotates the artist's lifestyle to be more relaxed due to his success. What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why? The kind of media institution that might distribute my media product would be Harris Publications, who publish XXL, which is one of the most well-known magazines dedicated to hip-hop and rap. Although they already distribute a magazine with the same audience as my product, they would have a good knowledge of the best locations to distribute my product due to having past experience with XXL. Another reason why I have chosen Harris Publications is because they know what the audience for my product would need to be tempted to buy my magazine, as well as being able to make it stand out on the shelves over its main competitors, which would be Vibe and The Source. Who would be the audience for your media product? The audience for my media product would be mainly males, as most of the content in the magazine is male orientated. However, this doesn't mean that females aren't allowed to read the magazine, and the magazine would have selected pages that would be suited for both genders. The audience for my magazine would have an age of around 20 to 30. This is because magazines are mainly read by people of this age. Other hip-hop magazines target these ages, and as I have used some of the conventions from these leading magazines which appeal to this age, my product would also appeal to the same audience. I felt that there wasn't much need to attempt to target other ages, as it would be hard to capture their interest because only a small amount of them would read it. My product's audience is expected to be of a mixed ethnicity. This is because hip-hop is now known to be listened to by all ethnicities, whereas it was thought to be targeted towards black culture. How did you attract or address your audience? One way in which I addressed the audience for my magazine was by using colloquial language. Slang is commonly used in hip-hop culture, as the genre was introduced by people that generally lacked grammar due to a lack of schooling and lived a criminal lifestyle. An example of colloquial language is found on the lead cover line of the front cover. In my magazine, I didn't want to overdo the use of slang, as I didn't want to ruin the image of my magazine being professional to being considered of a cheap quality. Another way in which I attracted my audience was with the use of colour. The house style in my product is black, white, red, with a sort of mustardy colour to add a bit of contrast to the red, especially on the front cover. This would attract my audience, as the unsaturated colours make the red stand out more on the shelves, attracting more attention from its potential readers. What have you learnt about the technologies from the process of constructing this product? During construction of my media product, I have improved my skill of management on these programs that I've used. For example, on Adobe Photoshop, I have learned more about organizing my layers to reduce file size by minimizing unnecessary layers. I've had previous experience with Photoshop, so I already knew most of the features available with the software. However, I learned more about some tools which I didn't use before, and using them turned out to be better than the methods I would normally have done before in an attempt to achieve the same result. For example, I used the clone tool to make the face of the artist clearer, though after learning the patch tool I began to use that instead of it and got better results out of it. Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learned in the progression from it to the full product? While doing my preliminary task, I feel I have learnt more about using colours that fit in the house style instead of using colours that don't go well together. For example, on my preliminary task, the range of colours on the front page, in my opinion, seems to be too much, but this is caused by the range of books shown in the background, as well as on the contents page of the preliminary task. I feel that the blue background that I have put on appears to be out of place. Rather than a plain colour, I have learnt that for certain pages, it will look better to have a meaningful background, which I have tried to accomplish in my main media product. I have also learned more about improving the layout structure. As you can see in my preliminary task, the layout of the contents page could be improved. However, for the contents page of my magazine, I have used conventions from the contents page of the source, as I thought theirs was well laid out, making it easy to navigate through, as well as it being different from its competitors Vibe and XXL.